Welcome, welcome. In this video, we're going to cover a Google Analytics 4 or GA4 tutorial for beginners. We'll go through installing GA4 on your website or web property, configuring administrative settings, viewing out-of-the-box reports, and customizing reports to suit your needs. First, log into Google and go to analytics.google.com or search for Google Analytics, and it should appear as the first result. If you don't have an account already, this is the landing page that you'll see. So click on Start Measuring and begin to create your account. If you already have access to a GA account, go to Admin and click on Create Account. We're brought to the same account creation screen. So when you create your account, keep in mind that your GA account could potentially encompass multiple web properties. So for example, your account name could be your organization. And within your organization's account, you could create GA properties for your website, a subdomain, a mobile app, or so on and so forth. So we'll give this a name and take a look at these settings to figure out which one you want to enable. I'm going to check off the first one because I want the enhanced demographics and interest reporting. We'll click Next and set up our first GA4 property. Give the property a name and set the correct time zone. Click on Next, and you can choose to input this business information. We'll click on Create, and it'll bring us to the terms of service. Choose the platform from which you'll be collecting data. We're going to choose Web for our website and input the URL as well as a stream name. I'm just using the URL again for the stream name. You can also use plain language. For example, for us it could be Digital Learning Sandbox website. So either way works. There's also this section for enhanced measurement, which shows you the interactions that are automatically tracked if you keep it enabled. This includes tracking for page views, scroll tracking, outbound clicks, site search, video engagement, file downloads, and form interactions. Then click on Create Stream. Then it'll provide you with installation instructions. If you're using a website builder or CMS, you can click on this tab and choose the platform that you're using. If you choose a specific platform, you'll receive instructions for that platform, so you can just follow those instructions. But we'll go back up here and click on the tab to install manually. So here it provides us with the script tag that you can copy and place in the code of your website. So we'll cover a couple ways to install your Google tag step by step, starting with manual installation by placing your tag directly in your HTML code. So copy this snippet of code, find the opening head tag, and paste the code that you copied. The second method is to add the Google tag using a tag manager like Google Tag Manager or GTM for short. You can manage tags all without developer resources. Go to tagmanager.google.com, and once the page loads, you'll see that you'll need to create a new account. So the account structure for GTM is similar to what you'll have in GA. So the account name can be your organization name, and the container can be similar to what you named your properties. So the target platform that you select is the type of web property that you're tracking. Click on Create. Then you'll see the instructions to install GTM. So copy this first snippet of code, go to your HTML, we'll remove the snippet from the previous example, and we'll paste our code as high up in the head tag as possible. Go back to the instructions, copy the second snippet of code, go to the HTML, find the opening body tag, and paste that snippet of code right after the opening body tag there. Close this out, and in this overview section, click on Add a new tag. Click on the tag configuration area and select Google Tag. Go back to your GA4 installation instructions where you can find your measurement ID, or if you click out of the installation instructions, it's also up here in this section. Instead of just pasting your GA measurement ID in this field, you can create a constant so you don't have to keep going back to GA4 to copy and paste it. So click on this Lego block icon here and create a new variable. Select variable configuration and scroll down to select constant. In the value field, paste your GA4 measurement ID, and we can name this. Click on save and it'll populate the field for you. Then scroll down, click in the triggering section and select initialization, all pages. Name the tag and save the tag. Now we can see if our tag works. Click on preview and publish the empty container. So once the container is published, click on preview in the modal or the preview button next to the submit button in the top right. Then what will happen is a new tab will load where you'll input your URL for the website. So once you do that, click on start. This will load the next page as well as a new tab with your website. And you'll notice in the URL that it has this GTM debug parameter. So you can differentiate that page view in your GA. And here on this page, we'll see in the lower right corner that the preview mode debugger has been connected. If you go back to the previous tab, you'll also see the same success indicator. Click on continue, and this shows us that our GA4 configuration tag fired successfully. And we can go to GA4 to validate this as well. Click out of this and click on the clock icon. You'll see the real-time report load, and look at that. There's our page view event right there. One of the key differences between GA4 and Universal Analytics is that Universal Analytics is hit-based. You have different categories for different types of hits. Page view hits, event hits, social, e-commerce, etc. In GA4, the data model is event-based. Basically, that means every interaction can be measured as an event. And in GA4, in the interface, you can actually create events. From the left navigation, go down to Admin, and in the Property column, click on Events. So you already have existing events that are measured. Some of the events are marked as conversions, so you can toggle which events you want to be marked as such. In order to create an event, click on this button here, and then you can create your custom event. Give the event a name. We'll call this main page link clicks. That's kind of long, but that's what we'll go with. You can set the conditions that Google will look for in order for the event to fire. For example, if we want to create event tracking for links clicked on from our main page or our home page to other pages, we can set an event parameter called event name equals to page view, add a condition, and we'll use page refer equals our homepage URL. So that should track any links that the user clicked on from the homepage leading to another page on the website. And as another example, we have an event that we created for high page engagement. And you can see the parameters. There's some documentation in Google Analytics for which you can find different parameters that you can leverage. Once you configure your events, you can go to test it. So let's go to our page here. Let's just reload this. And then we'll click on a link for read more and go to the reports section. Click on Realtime, and we can scroll down to the event here. And there's our main page link, clicks, event. You can click on that and it'll provide you with the details here. You can see the page location, which is the link that we clicked on from the home page with read more. If you go back, you can see that your page refer is our home page. When you're creating or modifying an event, just make sure it's not a reserved event name, or if you're using any of the event parameters, make sure it's not any of the reserved event parameters. And there's some documentation and a link in the description where you can see the event naming rules. Just be aware of that when you're creating your events or modifying them. If you want to mark any of the events that you created as a conversion, you can toggle them on in the Mark as Conversion column. And if you want to stop tracking any events as conversions, you can also toggle them off. And these marked as conversion events will appear under the conversion section, where you can also add new conversion events by clicking on this button here and just typing in the event name of the conversion that you want to mark. But it has to be an already existing event, an event that you already created. And then you would click on save. So you could create an event for a thank you page and mark it as a conversion. So we can name this purchase thank you. Event name for the parameter, we can call this page view. And for the page location, you would set this to whatever your thank you page URL. For example, thankyou.html. You can also add parameter configurations. So we can click on add modification if you want to add a monetary value. Look for currency. In the new value field, type in USD or whatever your currency is. Add another modification. And in the parameter field, this time we'll type in value. And you can input whatever value you want to associate with this conversion. So for example, we'll use 50. And once you create that event, mark it as a conversion or add it to your list of conversions in the conversion section. We'll move on to data retention. And this is one of the important features to take note of as you're configuring your GA4. By default, the event data retention is set to 2 months. You won't be able to access data more than 2 months in the past. So you want to make sure you set event data retention to 14 months and save it. In the debug view, you can use this to test any tracking that you've configured. It'll help you validate your data. It'll help you identify what is developer traffic. This is similar to the real-time report, as it'll provide you with the events that occur and any parameters and properties. And this will help you validate your data. So if we preview our GTM, test our tags in Google Tag Manager, it'll bring up this window. And if we click through a little bit, give some data to the debug mode, we can see the data that has been captured from this preview mode. And you can click into these events to view the parameters that are captured as well. You can also integrate these other Google products into GA4. So you need to make sure you have an account set up for whatever product you want to integrate. Then click on the product link, click on link here, and follow the steps to configure the integration. We'll take a look at the homepage for GA4, which you can navigate to from this left menu. This page serves more as a suggestion page for navigation, and you'll see why in a moment. It does give you this chart you can use for key performance indicators or KPIs. You can click on these metrics at the top to see how they trend over time. Not only that, you can change the metrics to what you feel like are your KPIs. For example, you can change any of these to purchases, transactions, or revenue. You can also allow Google Analytics 4 to choose a metric for you. And the next time you come back to your homepage, these changes for those metrics will remain. For each chart, you'll see a link to the report in the bottom right corner. There's this real-time report that shows you users from the last 30 minutes. You can change the dimension to another dimension here, and you can change users to new users. There's an area for recently accessed, so you can navigate back to those sections easily. There are suggested charts and tables, and they're working on a section for insights and recommendations. Now we'll look at the report section. You'll be brought to the screen that looks like this. It's kind of your dashboard for all the key metrics and important trends that you want to keep an eye on. And by default, it's set to all users, but you can add a comparison from here and configuring the dimensions, selecting the dimensions you're looking for, selecting the values, and adding a new condition if you want. You can also edit the comparisons that you have in this top right corner here. You can share this report, and you can also click on this icon for insights. This allows you to drill down into any questions that you might have for these specific topics. And if you find something that you're interested in, you can click on that question and it'll provide you with the answer. There's a date range up here, so you can change the date, the time frame to any of these options available. And you can compare date ranges. Click on apply and it'll update all the data with this dotted line for the previous year. And it adds these other data points from the previous year in different colors. For data tables and other charts, it gives you a percent comparison. Any insights that GA4 wants to call out, it'll show in this area here. And there's a bar chart, a horizontal bar chart for where your users are coming from, what traffic channels they're coming from. You can adjust the dimension to any of these options available. Whenever you see a down arrow next to a dimension or a metric, you can click on it and it'll give you a drop-down list of other metrics or dimensions that you can choose from. And it'll show you metrics or dimensions that are related to the chart or the data table that you clicked on. Then there's a section for your top campaigns, so you can see the session and medium. You can see where your users are coming from by country, as well as the retention rate and how users are engaging with your property over time. So there's this time series chart that shows user activity by these cohorts. And here there's this chart that shows the user cohort activity by week. Now down here we have the engagement section where it shows you the pages and the screens that receive the most views, the top events on your web property, and the top conversions. This data table down here shows you your top selling products if you have an e-commerce site. And finally, here's a donut chart that shows you the conversions by platform. In each of the cards, you'll notice in the top right corner, there's an icon that appears that indicates the sampling rate for the data presented in the card. For example, this shows us that this is an unsampled card. It's showing 100% of the available data, but thresholding is applied, making sure that it meets the minimum data aggregation thresholds. You also see this green check mark for cards where 100% of the data is being used and displayed in the card. In some reports, it'll show at the top. Click on Realtime Reports and you'll see the traffic that the web property is currently experiencing. Again, here's our icon for the data sampling rate. This real-time report shows data from the last 30 minutes. You can see this geomap where all the users are, and you can hover over various bubbles and see how many are in each bubble. So it breaks down the device category that the users are on as they're visiting your web property. You can view a user snapshot where GA4 will take one user and give you their recent activity. You can see their city, you can see top events, and you can click on any of these events to view the parameters. For example, page location, and it'll give you the rest of this data here. It gives you a timeline so you can see what events occurred and in what order they were fired. As you can see, there are different icons for different events. The blue finger cursor clicking is a general event, and the green flag icon is for conversion events, and the orange bug icon is for error events. You can click through and view different users, and if you want to exit, go to the top right corner here and click on Exit Snapshot. As you scroll down, you can see the various cards here, users by first user source. There's users by audience for different audience segments. You can see views by page title and page screen. There's event count by event name, conversions by event name, and users by user property if you're collecting any user property data. And for each of these items, you can click into them where applicable. For example, for events, you can click into the events and view the properties or the parameters associated with those events. For the rest of the out-of-the-box reports, your report layout in the left navigation will depend on what goals and objectives were chosen when the account was created. In this example, we have two sections. One is the life cycle, which shows you the user journey. In the user section, there are reports on demographics, and the technology they're using to access your web property. If another objective was chosen on setup from one of the objectives in the left column here, then the default reports in the right column is what you would see. There's a link to this documentation in the description. All of these out-of-the-box reports, except for the real-time report, but including the report snapshot, can be customized. So you can arrange these reports, these sections, as you desire. Starting with our acquisition overview reports, we have an overview of your user acquisition data and your traffic acquisition data. The difference is the user acquisition, as it mentions in the name, shows you data at the user level. So the user acquisition data will focus on the first time your user accessed or arrived on your web property, while the traffic acquisition data is at the session level. So you can see this data table on the left here is pertinent to the user acquisition, and this middle table is associated with the traffic acquisition. So a user can have multiple session acquisition data points. If we look at the user acquisition report, it gives us this chart that breaks down the different default channel groups. So you can see how they're trending over time, what the most popular traffic sources are for users for their first time sessions. And it also gives you this bar chart so you can see visually how that compares on an aggregate level. Now let's remove this comparison date range so that the data table is a bit easier to read. So in this data table, it breaks down the default channel group for first-time users. You can change this to another first-time user dimension like you could with the acquisition overview data table there, and you have these metrics here to the right. And the table is sorted by new users in descending order. So we see a summary row at the top for the aggregate of each metric. You can click on any of the columns here to sort the table by that column. So if we wanted to sort the table by revenue, we click on this down arrow that appears and the table will update. For traffic acquisition, it's the same layout out of the box. So if you wanted to add a dimension for specific source, you can search for it and select the desired dimension. So then the table will update and you can see the specific sources that are bringing in traffic. You can simply remove the secondary dimension by clicking on this X. Now we'll go to the engagement section where we can see behavior data for our users on our web property. In the overview report, we have metrics for this chart such as average engagement time, engaged sessions per user, and this engaged session is counted as sessions where they actually interact with your web property. There's also average engagement time per session. On the right, we have users in the last 30 minutes and the top pages and screens that they viewed. We scroll down and we can see a time series chart for the number of views, that is page views, and event count over time. And you can see the specific events by the event name and the event count. And you can view each specific event and it'll bring you to the event report. If we click on view promotion, you can see we're brought to the events page and you can see all the data specific to this event. But we'll go over that more in a moment. We have a table for page views by page title and screen class. And then we have activity over time for users that fall within these various cohorts of 1 day, 7 days, and 30 days. In this last chart, you can see user stickiness with these various metrics. You can see metrics around DAU, which is daily active users, weekly active users, or WAU, and monthly active users, or MAU. So this first metric shows you what percent of monthly active users are also daily active users. The second metric shows you the percentage of weekly active users that are daily active users. And the last one shows you the percent of monthly active users that are weekly active users. In the events report, you can see this time series chart that shows you the top events. And there's also a bar chart that shows you an aggregate for this date range. Moving to the data table below, here are the event names, and you can look at the metrics. As mentioned in the overview report, you can click on specific event names that will filter this entire events report accordingly. So for these events, you can view the various parameters associated with those events by clicking on the drop down for this data table on the right and selecting whatever parameter you're interested in. And it looks like a data point highlighted for event count per user. If you hover over this data point, it'll show you this anomaly that's been detected. So you can drill down into this date. You can select that specific date and drill down. You can dig into things like what traffic sources those users arrived from, how they were engaging more with your web property. Scrolling down, here's a data table for the page title and the traffic share for these pages with percent of total along with average time spent on these pages. You can change the page title dimension to page path. Here's the event count by country, event count by gender, event count by sessions, a data table for page title, event count, and the total number of users that viewed these pages. Here's a table for page location, page refer. Down here we have session content if you've configured tracking for content grouping. And there's session keyword that will likely come in from advertising keywords. Your users queried to find their way to your website or web property. If you want to view this report for another event, you don't have to go back to the events report. You can look at the top here and click on this drop-down menu to search for your event. In the conversions report, so you can see the popular events here at the top, and you can scroll down to view the event names. If you click on one of these conversions, it'll behave similarly to the events report, where it'll filter that report according to that conversion. Scroll down and it gives you the data by default channel group. In the pages and screens report, it shows you the most viewed screens and page paths. Scroll down and you can see the data here, and Google has added a landing page report as well. So these are the most popular landing pages for this date range. You can see all the landing pages here in this data table. For the monetization section, you want to make sure that you have the tracking for e-commerce or for ads in your mobile apps. So make sure you have the expertise to set that up. Talk to a developer that can help you do it, or configure it in Google Tag Manager. In the overview report for monetization, we have these KPIs for this time series chart, and it looks like Google needs to fix their tagging for e-commerce tracking because they aren't receiving any data for e-commerce revenue from the 19th here. If we scroll down, there's a time series chart for total purchasers and first-time purchasers. And then there's average purchase per user. You can see the most popular items that have been purchased. And then there's items purchased by item list name. So you can see the different types of product categories. There's items viewed in promotion by promotion name, purchase revenue by order coupon, and then there's a section for revenue from in-app purchases and ad units in your mobile app. The e-commerce purchases report provides us with more details around the products that have been purchased. So you can see the most popular items that have been purchased over time and items viewed compared to the items that have been added to cart. And then there's this data table that provides the items, the products, along with these metrics. You can change the item name dimension to another item dimension. So for example, if we click on item category, we can see these different categories and the metrics across those categories. If you have a mobile app, this will show you the in-app purchases. Same with publisher ads, where it'll show you additional ad unit information along with these metrics. In this user purchase journey, it gives you a funnel. So you see that it's a closed funnel where users must follow these steps to successfully flow through the funnel. You can see the number of users for each step and how many users advance to the following step. You can also see the abandonment rate for each step. You can click on View Funnel Steps to see the conditions for each step, but it looks like it's a standardized report or standardized configuration, so right now you can't change or configure the funnel steps. And then in this data table, it breaks it down by device category for each of these steps. And you can change the dimension to something else. There's also a section with the retention data. For this report, we have new users and returning users. There's a user retention by cohort. Same with user engagement, where it shows us the amount of time that these user cohorts engage. This chart shows us the user retention over time, where on day 0 it starts with 100%, and then it shows us the percentage of users that return the subsequent days. We can see the average engagement time for each of those days as well. And in this last chart, there's the lifetime value, which is the sum of total ad revenue and purchase revenue divided by number of new users. In the demographics overview, we have a geo map that shows us the number of users by country. There's a real-time report, and then there's a data table for users by city, users by gender, users by interests, according to data that Google has collected across its platforms and various data sources, users by age, and users by language. If you click on demographic details, this report will show you the country demographics, showing you the top countries that give you the most users. Scroll down and there's a data table for country. You can change the country dimension to any of these other dimensions. In this tech overview report, we have users by platform with a pie chart, as well as this real-time data table. Then we have users by operating system. In these data tables and charts, it gives us an additional metric to choose from in the form of total revenue. We have users by platform and device category, users by browser, users by device category in this donut chart, users by screen resolution, and if you have a mobile app, users by app version, data for the latest app release, app stability, as far as crashes are concerned, and users by device model. In the Tech Details report, it shows you data by browser. So you'll see the top browsers, and then in the data table, you can see various metrics for the top browsers. You can switch the dimension to these other tech dimensions, including operating system version, app version, etc. You can customize the reports listed in the left navigation menu here, with the exception of the real-time report. This is a more advanced topic, so it's covered in a comprehensive tutorial which is linked either on the screen or in the description. When you customize these reports, you have to be mindful that this can also change how other users of your GA4 account view the reports. I'll just mention that the reporting structure is broken down in the following manner. There are collections of reports like lifecycle and users, and within these collections you have report topics such as acquisition, engagement, and monetization. Each topic has at most one overview report, and then it can have multiple detailed reports. You need to have editor role for whatever property you're using. Let's go through how to make sure you have the right access. We'll go to the admin section here in the bottom left corner, and depending on your GA4 account, you can edit the access for the entire account or just for the property. So let's go to the property access management. And as you can see, you have all the users here, and if you click on the three dots to the right, you can view each user's account details. This is where you can change the role of each user, and you can also add users with the editor role if you want. We'll take a look at this library section, which is a hub for your collections and reports. Collections being a set of reports. And you'll notice that the collections matches what you see in the left navigation here. So lifecycle here and user collections are the same as what you see in the left navigation. You can edit the collection by creating topics or editing topics, as you can move detailed reports and overview reports into various topics here. You can create a new collection by clicking on this area here, and you'll have the option to create a new collection using a blank slate. You can also use some of the templates that they have available. Now we can go down to the reports section. So these are the existing reports. If you move your cursor over to the right, you can see these three dots, and it gives you options. Each property can have up to 200 reports. You can also create Explore reports or Exploration reports, which Google classifies as advanced techniques you can use to analyze and dig into your data. On the main page for explorations, you see a section to start a new exploration with either a blank canvas, or you can use one of the great templates that Google has available. On the bottom, there's a table for a list of reports that have been created in your web property by other users, if that's available. But if you click on the template gallery, we can take a look at all the report templates that Google has available. As we go over these exploration reports, we'll try to keep these at a high level so this tutorial doesn't go too long. You can click on Freeform to create a new report. For the exploration name, we can call it Social Media Report. And in this report, for the dimensions, what we'll do is add a dimension for source. Check that off, click on Apply, and move that over to the rows. We'll actually replace the existing city dimension in there. And then we'll go down. Right now, we have columns for device category, so that's desktop, mobile, and tablet. Then we can go down here and click on filters, add one for source, select the match type to be matches regex, and what we'll do is add this regex. Click on apply and the report will update. And you can name this tab as well. You can change it to social media traffic by device. Change the time frame if you want. You can add comparisons. Click apply. And then just explore your data in different ways like that. You can also add a couple more tabs to include some visualizations. So if you go to your tab and click on this drop down, select duplicate. And for this tab, we'll change it to a donut chart. You also have options for a line chart, scatter plot, a bar chart, and a geomap. So if you go back to the Explore main page in GA4, you'll see your report here. Now let's take a look at the funnel exploration. You have the steps across the top here, and for each stage you can see how many users progressed to the next stage and how many users abandoned at each stage. In the table here you can see the various steps along with the breakdown for a device category, which was added in this section down here. Over here you can choose whether you want a standard funnel or a trended funnel, which gives you a line chart for each stage. And you can see how that trends over time. And click on these tabs at the top to highlight one stage. You can hover over to see which line is which, or you can click on one of those tabs to isolate that line. If you make the funnel open, that means users can enter into the funnel at any step. So you can make it closed where the users must start from step 1 by leaving this off. Over here, continuing in the tab settings, you can configure the steps, remove any steps if you want, or edit the steps, which you can configure in this area, and the preview summary will update to the right. And when you're ready, just click apply. You can toggle on to show the elapsed time for the funnel, and you can see the amount of time that it takes to complete each step. What's nice about these Explore reports is they have these undo and redo buttons, and it's especially useful with the next type of Explore report that we'll look at. So similar to the funnel exploration report, there's the path exploration report, where the funnel exploration focuses on one specific clickstream path. The path exploration gives you multiple clickstreams. So from the session start, they can go through page view event or some other events, and from the page view, they'll go to one of these other events. You can create a reverse path exploration where it starts with a destination by clicking on Start Over in the top here and choosing Endpoint. So we can choose an event name such as Purchase for our endpoint, and then we can view a path exploration and reverse engineer the journey. If you click on another event within step 1, you can see where the user or what events the user take after that action. If you want to retract a step, what you have to do is click on the node that you previously clicked on. So for example, we clicked on page view in order to add step 3. And if we wanted to remove step 3, then we would simply click page view again. Now let's take a look at a segment overlap exploration. This will show us various audience segments and how they overlap with one another. So you can see the audience segments here and the legend. With these various audience segments, you can see the total number of active users in this table below, along with the various segments that overlap. You can also look at various values, for example, event count or transactions. Let's add in transactions, and this will add another column to the table so you can see what audience segments are producing the most transactions. Now let's go on to the cohort exploration. So for this cohort exploration, again, you'll see the cohorts according to the date in which they entered your site or visited your web property. And in this table, you have the left column with the date range. It's similar to the cohort table that you see in your report snapshot, with the week number at the top and the number of users for each week. So for this week here, you can see the number of users that visited and then how many of those returned to the site in subsequent weeks. For the cohort inclusion, you can change this first touch to specific events. So for example, if you want to add one for add to cart event, you can see the number of users that took the action of adding an item to a cart. And then for the return criteria, you can also specify what event you want to use. If it's another event or another add to cart event. Now we'll go on to the user lifetime template. In this table, we have the first user medium, the traffic source that they came from, the total number of users, lifetime average, which is the sum of the revenue from all the sources for all time, lifetime engagement duration average, and lifetime transactions average. You can change the row dimensions to any of these suggested dimensions as well. GA4 also provides some great templates for different use cases and industries. They're all based on the techniques that we just reviewed, and they include traffic acquisition, conversions, and prediction for top spenders. So make sure you check those out. If you're spending on advertising, click on the advertising section of GA4 to help you understand the ROI on your advertising spend, as well as where to spend your budget. At the top, you'll see that there's a filter for conversion events. So we see the channels that drive the most conversions according to the default channel grouping. And then we have a table down here that shows us the most popular touch points for your users that convert. If you click on the link for all channels, we'll have this report so you can see the trend of the channels that bring in the most conversions over time, as well as an aggregate for this date range with this bar chart. And then in this data table, you can see all the default channel groups. You can change the dimension to another traffic dimension. And you can add a secondary dimension as well. The metrics included are conversions, ad costs, cost per conversion, total revenue, and return on spend. We can take a look at the conversion paths under the attribution section. First, we see the touch points of users that convert by default channel grouping. You can change the dimension, and this breaks down all the touch points from the early to the mid stage to late touch points for your conversions. If you hover over a channel, it shows you the touch points, the credit for each stage in the conversion path. You scroll down to the data table. Here are the dimensions that you can use, but you can see the dimensions that are most popular as far as touch points. As you can see, some of these conversions require many touch points across multiple channels. And so the metrics include conversions, purchase revenue, days to conversion, and number of touch points to conversion. There's also a model comparison report under the attribution section where you can compare the different models available, the different models that we touched on earlier. So again, you can change the dimension, you can add a secondary dimension, but here you can choose which attribution models you want to compare and how they credit the various channel groups for the conversions. And the third section will show you the comparison, the percent change between the first model and the second model. So if you found this useful, please like, comment, subscribe. And if you want more content on digital analytics, including tracking, reporting, analysis, we'll see you in the next episode.